Today, you are about to experience a life where the only way to tell the truth is to convince the world that you have lost your mind. You were born Elizabeth Jane Cochran in the year 1864 in a place called Cochran's Mills, Pennsylvania. The town itself carries your family's name, and for a brief moment, that name means something. Your father is a judge, a mill owner, a man whose decisions shape the small world around him. You come into that world as the 13th child, though not all of your siblings survive, and death is a presence as familiar as the mill whistle. The first years of your life hold comfort. There are rooms with warm walls, clothes that fit, and the sense that the world has a place for you. But you are not a passive child. Even then, you watch. You notice the way men gather around your father, how their voices change when they speak to him. You notice the way women move through the edges of the room, carrying trays, adjusting curtains, lowering their eyes. You notice that power has a sound, and silence has a shape. The town around you is built on work. Cold dust settles on windowsills. Wagons groan under the weight of iron and timber. Men come home with blackened hands and tired backs. Women scrub clothes in cold water and hang them in smoke-filled air. You see all of it from the height of a child's gaze, and you understand, long before you have words for it, that the world is divided between those who are seen and those who are not. Your father's death changes the weather of your childhood. One day, the house is full of voices and authority. The next, the rooms feel hollow, and your mother's face tightens with a worry she tries to hide. You do not understand all the legal words spoken in low tones. But you understand the movement of furniture, the sale of things that once seemed permanent, the way relatives suddenly appear with opinions about what your mother should do. Money becomes a topic whispered behind closed doors. You are still a child, but you learn that grief is not only an emotion, that it is also a negotiation. Your mother fights to keep the family together. She remarries, and the marriage becomes a wound of its own. You watch a man raise his voice to her. You see the helplessness in her shoulders, the way she tries to protect you while being unable to fully protect herself. You learn, earlier than you should, that the law does not always rush to help a woman. You learn that survival sometimes requires endurance in a room where no one is coming to save you. For a time, you are sent away for schooling. You are bright, hungry, alive to words. You read with a focus that feels like escape. But money runs out, and the door to formal education closes as abruptly as a gate swung shut. You return to the narrower world of family need and uncertain income. Poverty is not a single event, that it is a series of small humiliations, that it is the dress that does not fit, the meal that is smaller than hunger, the opportunity that exists for someone else, that it is the look on a shopkeeper's face when you ask for credit, that it is the moment you realize that intelligence does not automatically create freedom. You work in a boarding house, a kitchen, a laundry, places where women's labor is constant and mostly invisible. Your hands learn the texture of scrubbing, starching, folding. Your mind, however, refuses to be folded. You watch the guests. You hear their conversations. You see who is believed and who is dismissed. You notice that a man with a confident voice can say almost anything, while a woman with the truth often waits for permission to speak. You promise yourself, in the quiet hours, that you will not wait. You do not yet know what form that promise will take. You only know that it burns. Then one day, you read a newspaper column titled, "What Girls Are Good For." The writer argues that women are suited to domestic life, that their place is the home, that their ambitions should be modest and their voices soft. You read it once, and then you read it again. The anger rises in you like heat up the back of a throat, that it is not a polite anger. It is not the kind of anger that can be folded into a drawer. You sit down and write a letter. The letter is addressed to the Pittsburgh Dispatch.it isn't signed at first, because even in your fury, you know the risk of a girl speaking plainly. But the words are forceful, sharp, alive. You challenge the columnist. You argue that women are not ornaments, not servants, not supporting figures in someone else's story. You write about work, fairness, and the waste of human ability. You do not ask for permission to have a mind. You state that you already have one. The editor, George Madden, reads the letter and is startled by its force. He does not know whether the writer is a man or a woman. He places an advertisement in the paper, asking the author to reveal herself. When you walk into the office, the men at the desks look up. They see a young woman in plain clothes, carrying herself like someone who has come to collect something. You are nervous, but you do not let the nervousness bow your head. The editor questions you. You answer without softening that he offers you a chance to write. That chance is not a gift. It is a door you have pushed against until it opened. You become Nellie Bly. The name is borrowed from a popular song, but it fits like a new skin. Under that name, you begin to write for the Pittsburgh Dispatch. The newsroom is a place of ink-stained desks and loud voices. Cigar smoke hangs in the air like weather. Men shout across the room. Presses thrum through the floor. Telegraph wires carry the world's events into a room where men decide what matters. You are one of the few women there, and your presence is treated as a novelty by some and an intrusion by others. At first, they want you to write about flowers, fabrics, housekeeping, and the gentle arts of pleasing men. You do some of that work, but it scrapes against you. You push for other stories. You write about factory women, their hours, their wages, their hands. You write about working-class lives that most newspapers only see as statistics. You write about marriage and divorce, poverty and unfairness, and the hidden cruelties inside respectable society. You go into the places where women work, and you ask questions that make people uncomfortable. You describe what you see with clear, unshrinking sentences. The editors try to guide you back to safer topics. They do not know what to do with a young woman who wants to investigate power, but the public reads your stories. They write letters. They argue. They pay attention. You are becoming known, but not entirely trusted. The men who run the paper want your energy without your independence. They want the novelty of a woman reporter without the trouble of a woman who refuses to stay in the assigned column. You understand that a career made deliberately smaller is not a career you can accept, so you leave Pittsburgh. You do not have much money. You do not have a guaranteed position, but you have learned that staying too long in a room that wants to shrink you is its own kind of failure. You set your sights on a larger world. In the mid-1880s, you traveled to Mexico as a foreign correspondent. The journey itself feels like a door opening onto color and heat. You travel through markets where the air smells of chilies, ripe fruit, and dust. You hear music that does not obey the rhythms of Pennsylvania mills. You see colonial churches, narrow streets, railway cars cutting through dry landscapes, villages where children run barefoot and women carry baskets on their heads. The beauty is real, so is the poverty. You notice the distance between a visitor's romantic idea of a country and the hard lives of ordinary people. You do not look away. You begin to write about political repression, corruption, inequality, and the treatment of the poor. You see how power protects itself. You see how truth becomes dangerous when powerful men control what may be said. You are a foreign woman with a notebook, and that makes you visible in ways that are not always safe. You are watched. You are warned. The pressure builds until leaving becomes not a choice but a necessity. You return to the United States with dust in your clothes and anger in your spine. You now understand that truth is not welcomed simply because it is true. You understand that telling the truth can cost you a room, a country, a chance, and you understand that you will do it anyway. In 1887, you arrive in New York City. The city is immense. Elevated trains rattle overhead. Horse carts and carriages crowd the streets. Gas lamps cast a yellow haze over sidewalks crowded with immigrants, workers, traders, and thieves. Newsboys shout headlines at every corner. Tenement windows open onto air thick with laundry and smoke. Wealth and hunger exist side by side, close enough to touch. You need work. You go from newspaper to newspaper, carrying your clippings and your reputation. The city is not impressed. Doors close. Editors wave you toward the society pages or the women's column. You are a woman, and that fact seems to blot out everything else you have done. The days stretch into weeks. Your money disappears. You live in a cheap boarding house where the walls are thin and the future feels thinner. Then Joseph Pulitzer's New York World offers something extraordinary. The editors have heard of you. They know you are bold. They have an assignment that no one else will take. You must pretend to be mentally ill. You must convince doctors, judges, and institutions that you are insane. You must enter the women's lunatic asylum on Blackwell's Island, and you must report what happens inside. The weight of the assignment settles into your chest. You understand the danger immediately. Once you cross that door, the people in charge have the power to decide whether you are released. You will have no legal authority to demand your freedom. You will be a woman without a husband, without a guardian, without a reputation the institution is bound to respect. If the newspaper fails to retrieve you, you may stay there for years. If your performance is too convincing, you may become the thing you are pretending to be. If you lose yourself inside the role, no one will know the difference. But you think of the women behind those walls who never chose to be there. You think of the women who cannot make themselves heard. You think of the locked doors you have spent your whole life refusing to accept. You take the assignment. The preparation feels like stepping into a second skin. You call yourself Nellie Brown. You practice not smiling when you should smile. You practice staring too long at a wall. You practice answering simple questions with confusion and silence. You are not trying to be a monster. You are trying to be the kind of woman the world finds inconvenient. You rent a room in a boarding house and begin to behave strangely. You pace. You speak in fragments. You say you have lost your things. You say you do not remember. The other boarders grow uneasy. They watch you with the wariness of people who are afraid of being dragged into trouble. Soon, the police are called. They ask questions. You give answers that do not fit. You look through them as if they are not entirely there. The machinery of the city begins to move around you. You are taken before judges. You are examined by doctors. The examinations are terrifying in their efficiency. Doctors glance at you, ask a few questions, write something down. They do not look long enough to see the woman underneath the performance. They do not consider that a sane person might pretend. The assumption of illness is so strong that every gesture you make becomes evidence against you that a woman who is tired and confused must be ill. A woman who is frightened must be ill. That a woman who cannot explain herself to a room full of men must be ill. You are declared insane. The words land on you like a sentence without appeal. You are sent to Blackwell's Island. The asylum sits on an island in the East River, separate from the city, separate from easy witness. You arrive by boat. The water is gray. The buildings are massive and unlovely. The doors close behind you with a sound you feel in your teeth. You are given thin clothing. The rooms are cold. The air smells of bodies, disinfectant, and neglect. You are surrounded by women. Some are ill in ways you can see. Some are poor and exhausted. Some are immigrants who cannot speak English. Some are women whose families no longer want them. Some are simply inconvenient. They are all behind the same locked doors. The attendants are overworked. Some are cruel in small, constant ways. Some are indifferent. Some are too tired to be anything but numb. You sit on a hard bench and try to memorize everything. You repeat names and details in your mind like a prayer. The food is almost inedible. Bread that is hard, soup that is water, meat that is mostly gristle. Women eat because they are starving. Some cannot eat and grow weaker. The bath is a line of women moving through cold water. One tub serves many bodies. The water turns gray and then darker. You shiver, and the cold stays in your bones for hours. There is no privacy, no place to be alone, no place to speak without being watched. You learn that a complaint changes nothing. A woman tells an attendant she is cold. The attendant walks away. A woman says she does not belong here. No one believes her. You think, with a clarity that hurts, that the only difference between you and these women is that someone on the outside knows you are here. You are not protected by sanity. You are protected by a newspaper's plan. That thought makes you feel like a fraud and a witness at the same time. You do not sleep well. The nights are loud and strange. Women cry. Women mutter. Women stare at the ceiling as if it might open. You lie still and listen, and you make yourself remember. You remember the names. You remember the rooms. You remember the cold water. You remember the bread. You remember the sound of a woman begging to be released. You remember the silence after she is ignored. You are afraid that the world may not come for you. You are afraid that the city has already forgotten the young woman it sent here. You are afraid that your performance has become your identity, but you do not stop recording what you see. Even in fear, your mind works like a notebook. After 10 days, the newspaper arranges your release. A lawyer arrives. Doors open. You walk out of the asylum and back into the world. The sunlight feels too bright. The noise of the city feels too loud. You carry pages of notes inside your head and inside your clothes. You return to the newsroom with a story that has to be told. You sit down to write. The words come fast and precise. You write about the cold, the food, the baths, the women, the locked doors. The doctors who saw too little. The system that held too much power. You write not as a tourist through suffering, but as someone who has slept in the cold room and eaten the gray bread. You write with the urgency of a witness. The New York World publishes 10 Days in a Madhouse. The city stops. Readers crowd around newsstands. They wait for each installment. They read about the asylum in the same paper they used to line their bird cages. But this time, they do not look away. The story spreads. Public outrage builds. City officials are called before committees. The asylum is inspected. Money is allocated. Changes are promised. Not everything changes. Institutions do not become gentle overnight. The wounded women do not get their years back. But the story shows what investigative reporting can do when it places hidden suffering in front of people who would rather not see. You become nationally known. Your name is printed in headlines. But fame is not the point. The point is that a locked door was opened by a story. The point is that you walked in and came back to tell. You understand now that a story can entertain and a story can change something. You want the second kind. In 1889, you propose something that sounds impossible. You want to travel around the world faster than the fictional journey in Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days. The editors doubt you. They doubt that a woman can travel alone. They doubt that a woman can pack lightly. They doubt that a woman can navigate foreign cities, manage delays, and remain safe. You listen to their doubts and feel a familiar heat rise in your chest. You do not argue for long. You tell them you can do it. You prepare one small bag. The bag becomes a symbol. You are not waiting for a chaperone. You are not waiting for permission. You are not carrying the weight of other people's expectations. You pack only what you need. You leave New York by steamship. The city recedes behind you. The ocean opens in front of you. The race begins. You travel through rail stations and ocean liners, through storms and ports, through crowded streets and changing languages. You move by ship, by train, by rickshaw, by horse, by your own exhausted feet. The world unfolds in fragments. A train window frames a landscape you have never seen. A port smells of fish and smoke. A hotel room is a place you leave before dawn. You are racing time itself. You are also racing the idea that a woman cannot do this. You are proving something, but you are not performing for the men in the newsroom. You are performing for the woman you once were in Pennsylvania. The one who read that a woman's place was the home and refused to believe in France. You visit Jules Verne. The moment is strange and luminous. The man who imagined the journey meets the woman who is attempting to beat it. You do not share a language easily. You do not need to. The visit is not about words. It is about recognition. He sees a traveler. You see a dreamer. Both of you understand the pull of the horizon. Meanwhile, another newspaper sends Elizabeth Bisland to travel the world in the opposite direction. The two of you become a public spectacle. The newspapers turn your race into a contest between women, between newspapers, between ways of being. But you are not running against her. You are running against the clock. You are running against the assumption that the world is too large for a woman. The journey is not romantic. You are seasick. You are exhausted. You sleep in strange rooms and wake to strange sounds. You miss trains. You wait on docks. You eat food you cannot name. You are lonely, but you keep moving. The movement itself becomes a kind of language. It says, I am here. It says, I am not stopping. It says, the world is wide, and I intend to see it. The final stretch home is a blur of speed and tension. Telegraphs announce your progress. Crowds gather at stations. Trains race through winter landscapes. Newspaper offices track every hour. Readers wait for a woman they have never met, as if your journey belongs to them. On January 25th, 1890, you return to New York. 72 days, 6 hours, 11 minutes, and 14 seconds. The number is absurd and precise. The city erupts. Crowds shout your name. Flags wave. Reporters shove forward. You step onto the platform, tired and triumphant. You have traveled around the world. You have beaten the fictional record, but the journey is not merely a stunt. It proves that the borders around women's lives are often defended by expectation more than ability. You have crossed oceans and continents with one small bag. You have made the world smaller for every woman who comes after you. The celebration is loud. But fame is a strange companion. It lifts you up and then asks for more. You write about the journey. You speak to audiences. You become a public figure, a name, a headline. But you are still a woman in a world that does not quite know what to do with you. You are not finished. In your later years, you marry industrialist Robert Seaman. The decision surprises some people. They assume marriage will end your ambition. They assume a wife must become a quiet background. You do not become quiet, but the shift is complicated. You are no longer only a reporter. You are a wife, a public figure, a woman expected to manage a household. The world watches your choices with a critical eye. Then Robert dies, and you are left with the ironclad manufacturing company. You step into the role of an industrialist. The factories are loud, hot, and full of risk. Steel containers move through the air on chains. Workers bend over machines. Ledgers fill with numbers that do not always add up. Inventors bring you designs. Salesmen make promises. Lawyers draft contracts. You are a woman running an industrial company, and many people assume you will fail. You do not fail immediately. You innovate. You are connected to practical steel containers, useful, sturdy, built for the modern world. You try to make the company work. You fight for contracts. You study the business with the same focus you once used to memorize asylum rooms. But the pressure is enormous. There are financial mistakes. There are dishonest employees. There are legal conflicts. The company slips. The money drains. The failure is not one villain or one bad choice. It is a slow accumulation of trust broken, markets shifting, and the weight of a position no one really wanted you to hold. You lose the company. The loss is public. The world that once cheered your name now watches you fall. You learn that reinvention is not guaranteed, even for someone brave enough to enter any room. You do not disappear. You return to journalism. The work feels like finding your own voice again after a long silence. You report on war, poverty, abandoned children, and people left outside the protection of wealth. You are older now. Your body is slower, but your eyes are still sharp. You still see the people the world prefers to ignore. You still believe that a story can change something. You still carry the memory of a locked door and a cold room. You die in 1922. The date is simple, but your life resists a simple ending. Think back to the young woman writing an angry letter to a newspaper. She is not famous. She is not powerful. She is just furious. She refuses to be told what women are good for. Now look at the distance she travels. Milltown daughter, investigative reporter, asylum inmate by choice, traveler, celebrity, businesswoman, witness to the lives society ignores. She is all of those people. But underneath all of them is the woman who walks into a place everyone else avoids and returns with the truth. Her greatest achievement is not merely surviving 10 days behind locked doors. It is not merely circling the globe in 72 days. It is proving that courage can be investigative. It can be curious. It can be quiet in a cold room, listening for the details that will later break a city's heart. It can be loud on a ship's deck, facing an ocean that does not care about your name. It can be worn down by failure and still return to the work. It can be tired and still tell the truth. Now slow down. Return to Blackwell's island. See the locked door. Hear the sound it makes when it closes. Feel the cold air on your skin. Inside, women wait. They wait for someone to believe them. They wait for someone to see the truth trapped behind institutions, habits, and fear. You are one of them, and you are also not one of them. You are there by choice, but you understand the terror of being unable to prove your own mind. You understand that sanity can be taken from you by men who do not look closely. You understand that the world often believes the story told by the person with the most power. Now step back further. See the girl in Cochrane's Mills. She is bright and watchful. She is learning that intelligence alone cannot buy freedom. She is learning that money, gender, and power decide who gets heard. She is learning to be angry in a way that will later become useful. Now step forward. See the woman in the newsroom. The men around her smoke and talk. They do not know what to do with her. She writes anyway. She makes them listen. She makes the city listen. She makes the country listen. She walks into an asylum because no one else will. She walks out with a story that forces the world to look at what it has chosen not to see. She travels around the world not to escape her life, but to prove that her life cannot be contained by someone else's expectations. She fails. She rises. She works until the work is no longer possible. And when she dies, she leaves behind a question that still matters. Who gets believed? Who gets dismissed? Who has the courage to walk through the door where the truth is locked away? Congratulations. You have lived Nellie Bly's life.